Yeah, my name is Robert Bernt. My wife Christine and I, we have 12 children, and we live on a Cedar River in Wheeler County, Nebraska, where the pipeline is going to cross. We currently run and operate an organic dairy operation of 700 acres. We market a product called Clear Creek Organic Farm cheese and meats. These products are going to be affected because if the pipeline does cross and it would contaminate the Cedar River, we would no longer be able to certify our products organically because we would never know if it would contaminate the water that our cows consume to produce this cheese. So this has been a main concern for us. The Cedar's a beautiful spring fed. It feeds directly from the Ogallala Aquifer. Our kids enjoy this river. We enjoy this river. When we were growing up, it's a daily activity for them to be in this river, and this would not be possible. We have a son that does an outfitting thing on the Cedar River with tanking and canoeing, and last year, in a short period of time, there's 3 other outfitters along with him on the Cedar, and they generated $150,000 in revenue in this local area, which is a very non-prosperous area. There's only 1,000 people in the county, so there's no other sources of income, and this was a very good source, but this would affect that directly. I guess that's some of my biggest concerns over this, and the way that TransCanada has went about to bring this in play has been detrimental to the state of Nebraska. It's severed the people in the state with lies and manipulation of the facts, the jobs, for instance, the amount of revenue that's going to be created. We all know, and we see evidence from Cornell University and whatnot of how this is really going to come down to play, and it's just lies that is just devastating us. And in fact, I felt so strongly against this that for the first time in my life I testified at the state hearings in Lincoln, Nebraska, and I was humiliated. I was put down by the senators on the committee that interviewed us. I witnessed TransCanada's individuals testifying with free and with ease, allowed to speak as they wish and about things that they wish to, and yet when an individual from the state of Nebraska would get up to speak, they were put down and they were ridiculed, they were chastised almost. And it scares me that this thing has gotten to a point where we're allowing outside money to come in and influence our senators to keep the people from the state of Nebraska, who they are in place because of us, keeping these people from allowing to voice their opinion on what they think it ought to properly be done with this. It's been a long, scary, unbelievable fight that I never dreamt in a state like Nebraska that we could ever be infiltrated, so to speak, with such a powerful source of money that can buy their way, force their way, threaten eminent domain to get the people to just sell their livelihoods out and actually not even know they're doing it. We've got several individuals in my area that did sell out were done so at a bar from an individual that was buying them drinks and steaks, and they were thinking this was just a wonderful thing, at the time, and now they realize that it's going to be a painful, way of life that they're going to have to give up, basically. It's important for other people in this nation to realize that that the Ogallala Aquifer is one of the most precious natural resources that this country has. We can survive and get by without oil, and that's not what I'm saying we should do, but we can. We cannot get by without water. It's a resource that we have absolutely got to have. Years ago, there was a law in the books in the state of Nebraska that pertained to the priority list for the consumption of water and usage of water. And David Aikens was a water law specialist that taught through the university this law in his classes. And it was number 1, of course, human consumption, number 2, livestock, Number 3, farming, irrigation for crops. Number 4 was industrial, and the number 5 was recreational. And not any of the ones down the list could replace or damage the water supply for the ones up the list. And I don't know what's happened to this. I don't know if it's got swept under the rug by the legislatures. I don't know what's happened to it. But this was a very prominent law that was there to protect our waters that seems to have just almost disappeared. And I'd like to know more about what happened to that and where it's at and why we can't follow it, because there's no doubt that as a threat to the water supply of not just the state of Nebraska but the entire nation, that this, by an industrial company like TransCanada, which we don't even know who this is and who actually owns this oil, and we know it's not going to be U.S. bound oil, this should not be allowed to affect any of the 4 priorities above it. Sorry about that.
It's okay.
This bothers me. We definitely don't want this to destroy the water supply that we need for the 4 previous priorities that need to be in place. Above all, human consumption and livestock consumption. Is there anything else I'd like to add?
Well, I think the people of Nebraska and the people of America, I think, would be interested in hearing a little bit more about how you were humiliated down there at the legislature and how you were treated, and just specifics about that. I understand the governor's office called you yesterday to apologize. I mean, that's not something that happens every day. What prompted them to, could you share some more details on what specifically happened to you?
Well, I guess the day that I testified, I was the last speaker of the day, and I chose a neutral position because the bill I was testifying on had a portion of it that I was not familiar with, and I didn't feel I could offer anything on that. So I chose to testify in a neutral position. And this is what upset them. They just kept asking me and an individual prior to me, what is your neutral position? And I would explain that to them, and then they wouldn't allow me to continue to talk. And finally, I got so frustrated with not being able to show the what I had to offer, and what I had to offer had to do with earthquakes. They're building this thing on a fault line. It's an active fault line. They're running right on top of and parallel to this fault line. And just as last fall, there was a 4.2 earthquake on this fault line. And this is what I wanted to offer them that they hadn't heard during that day long of testimonies. I wanted to offer them the fact that they're crossing 8 major rivers that are going to contaminate the entire water system in the state of Nebraska, and on down as the Missouri River flows. It just concerned me, and I wanted to express how this was not, and had maps to document it. I had documentation of water lines that have been put into the sandhills for watering cattle. Wheeler County alone has 400,000 water lines that have been put in. There's no record of where they're at. So how are they going to know where to come through with this pipeline without damaging them? They didn't want to listen to me in that testimony. They wanted to chastise me to the point where I would get frustrated and basically not finish my testimonial and get it out in front of the people. And after him ridiculing me about the neutral position, I finally spoke out and said, listen, it appears that I don't have the intelligence that I need to testify in front of you. And that was what really what drew the attention, and Senator Haar stepped in and corrected him, and stepped up and defended myself and the other individual afterwards, and I'm greatly appreciative of him. I've received phone calls apologies from 3 other senators, not the one that chastised me, by the way, but 3 other senators have apologized in depth. The governor's office has called me and apologized with grave concern for what happened at that hearing. I really feel terrible to think that our state, once again, has allowed money to get into the hands of these senators, and I shouldn't say the state has allowed it, but these individuals who are in a public position to represent the people in the state are accepting this money, and it just has to be what is done. It has to be what's happened, or they wouldn't have this sort of a direct opinion and demonstrated at these hearings. It's just terrible that these individuals are elected to represent us. They've allowed this money to come in there and decipher and make up their minds on how to treat us. And but that's basically what happened in Lincoln at the hearings 2 days ago. There will be a public press release on it. There's a lot of comments. I've had individuals from that senator that did this to me, from his district, call me and really upset that this had happened, that he did this, and they are going to do what they can to see him get out of this position.
Good.
He doesn't deserve the right to sit on the Natural Resources Committee, out alone to be in the Senate. And this is another issue. This Natural Resources Committee did have a bill proposed to them years ago when this whole project with TransCanada come on board, trying to define and protect the state at that time, and that Natural Resources Committee did not let it out of their committee. So it was just dead in the water. So the money that's being spent for a special session, of course, wouldn't have to be done if that would have been done right at that time. So this committee's got other ultimatums from a natural resources standpoint than actually protecting the natural resources of the state of Nebraska.
Ulterior motives,
Yes,
another agenda.
Yes, sir.
Well, one thing I've been picking up, Robert, is with people I've been meeting all along the proposed pipeline route, and I will emphasize the word proposed because we're not going to let this get built, is disrespect. Disrespect towards landowners by TransCanada, and now you're telling me how you've been disrespected at the legislature.
Yes.
And this is a common theme, and this is not the American way.
No.
As I believe it.
The day of the hearing, of course, we're all sitting in front of the committee as they're hearing the testimonials, and you had your back to the audience as you testified. As I got to my position to speak, I walked to the front of the room and I sat down. TransCanada was sitting to the right side of the room in a little cluster, and an individual was testifying from the NRDC's, I believe, very, very good testimony on the actual effects of tar sands, information that this state and this committee need to know. And as he was speaking, now mind you, his back is to the group, and if you were sitting in the group, you wouldn't have seen this, but I was at the front, and the position similar to the committee, I seen TransCanada's individuals mocking this individual. They were making facial gestures and waving their hands and mocking him as he was speaking in front of the senators. And this just blew my mind that adults could actually do something this intimidating to the senators, and why the senators didn't just come right up and say, "You please excuse yourself from this hearing room," would have been the position I took. And I'd have thrown him out of there without any hard feelings or recourse on my part in one bit. They had no right, and it was not noticeable. Their hands were reached out, and they were making the facial gestures of this gentleman, and I was appalled. So these are the individuals you're dealing with. They're ruthless, they're careless, they have no concern for their fellow man or the land or the environment or the birds. And I'm not an environmentalist. I'm an organic farmer and rancher that cares about the land, the soil, and the makeup of it. I want to continue it to be out here so the people in this country have got the right to eat what they want to eat. Not import water, have fresh, clean water there to drink. And if we allow these people to step up and throw their money around and destroy it, you're not going to have that right. You're not going to have that freedom. You're not going to have these rivers and streams that you can go out and enjoy and see and watch. You're not going to have these migratory birds coming through here. That's not going to happen. The people in this nation have got to step up and do something. It isn't just a handful of people like myself or like you traveling through here. As a group, we've got to pool our voices together and protect this land. It's ours to protect.
Come on, America.
Yes, sir.
Let's get together. Let's do this. Let's block this, and let's get on with doing what's right.
Yes. Take care of this. It wasn't given to us to abuse. This was given to us. This land was given to us to use and enjoy and to raise our families on. not abuse it, not destroy it. And that's what they're doing. We need to protect it. We need to do what's right, or we're going to be punished for it. I'm sorry.